Welcome to another episode of Bleav in the Broncos on the Bleav Network, presented by Bet Online. I am Patrick Chiotti. I'm one of your two co-hosts of this show. Joining me, as always, is former Denver Bronco, Super Bowl 50 champion, Chris Harris Jr. Chris, it's good to see you, man. In the middle of tornado season. What the heck is going on? How you doing?
Doing good, man. It's been crazy down here in North Texas, but family's making it. We're alive, man. Let's talk some ball.
Yeah,
Yes,
man.
sir.
Well, in Texas, they're celebrating right now because the Dallas Mavericks are, of course, headed to the NBA Finals to face off with the Boston Celtics. Kyrie Irving returning to Boston. That's going to be a fun storyline. Chris, who you got in that series, real quick?
Man, I'm gonna have to ride with the Mavs, man. I think Luka and what Luka's doing out there, I think he's the best player. So
Crazy.
usually when you get to the finals, usually the best player wins. So it's always real tight games until like the last 5 minutes, and the stars got to rise, right? And I think Luka's the best player on the court, so I'm gonna go with the number one guy.
I feel that. I think that they're riding the trend. Boston kind of coasted to the finals. Now they got a tough matchup. We have a lot to cover in our first episode back from a little tiny hiatus. The OTAs for the Denver Broncos are completely underway. We've got a lot to talk about with the quarterbacks and the competition that's going on between Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, and Jarrett Stidham. Some notable players are not at OTAs, seeking a rise in their contract. And then there's been a couple of minor injuries to some Broncos players in OTAs. We're going to cover that. And big news coming out of the Denver Broncos organization. 2 more players added to the Broncos Ring of Fame. Very excited to talk about that with you, Chris. Before we get into all of that, we have a message from our sponsors. Bet Online is your number one source for the NBA and NHL playoffs this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action, and don't forget to use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online. The game starts here. And Chris, where we're going to start is with the Denver Broncos, of course, electing safety Steve Foley and tight end Riley Odoms to the Broncos Ring of Fame. 2 very impactful players to this organization early on in their days. Steve Foley is the Broncos' all-time interception leader with 44 interceptions during his 11-year career in Denver. He was an 8th-round draft pick of the 1975 NFL draft. But he was a big part of that Orange Crush defense that helped the Broncos to 2 Super Bowl appearances during his career. Chris, Steve Foley started as a cornerback, transitioned to safety, kind of similar to something that you wanted to do. And a big member of the Broncos organization early on in its days. What do you have to say about Steve Foley getting elected to the Broncos Ring of Fame?
I got to meet Steve a couple of times. He was always around. And such a great guy, he's a lot bigger than what people think. He was a big corner, one of those 6'1", tall corners, could move, and that's why he could move to safety so well. But just a ball magnet. I think he had 40, 50 picks. He's definitely up there with the interception. So it was great to see him up there and him get recognized. He's such a good dude that he definitely deserves it. I never got to meet Riley Odom. So that was one guy I didn't get to meet, but Steve was always around, and it was great to get a chance to talk ball with him. He was always heavy with the no fly. He always wanted to come watch us. Check us out at practices, thing like that. So congrats to Steve, man. He definitely deserves it.
Yeah, big congrats to them. You're definitely going to be in the Ring of Fame conversation someday. I cannot wait to have those conversations. Riley Odoms, though, the other Broncos player that is elected to the Broncos Ring of Fame. This is the first time since, I Bleav, when they inducted John Lynch, Simon Fletcher, and Jason Elam that they've had multiple players get elected to the Ring of Fame. Riley Odoms, no slouch at all in his career. He's still ranked 7th in franchise history in receiving yards. He holds the franchise record for most consecutive games with a touchdown catch, and that's 7 games. Played in 112 consecutive games to start his career, and he is the second Broncos tight end to get elected into the Ring of Fame, the first being, of course, Shannon Sharpe. Chris, the Ring of Fame is such a big honor, especially for Broncos players. Can you speak really quickly about kind of what that means for some of the veterans that have called Denver home during their career?
Yeah. I think it's a motivation factor. When you go up there and you see those guys, those great guys up there, you want to put your name up there. You want to cement your history or your legacy up there. And especially when you go into the practice facilities, in our indoor, you see the Hall of Fame guys hanging up in there. That's motivation to you, right? Or it was to me. It should give you that motivation to strive. You want to put your name up there. Be up there with the greats. So it means a lot, definitely, for those guys to be honored for what they did in Denver, because it's hard to play there, man. It's hard. You got to definitely, if you go out there and ball, man, you definitely put in the work. Fans notice it. And when you play bad, they notice it too. So, hey, when you have a guy like Foley that's was very consistent, ball magnet, and Odom, those guys, playing the consecutive games, consecutive games with touchdowns, those are big deals, man. So, congrats to those guys. And like I said, it should be a motivation. Every player up there should want their name in the rafters.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you're definitely one of those names that's very close to being on that list. Other guys like Aqib and, DeMarcus, who played key roles. I mean, Von Miller, his impact on the organization, that can't be understated. I mean, shoot, put the whole Super Bowl 50 team in the Ring of Fame. Honestly, you guys balled out. Chris, before we move on, is there any players, I think this would be, interesting talking about, are there any players on the Denver Broncos roster right now that you could see potentially being Ring of Famers in the future?
Yeah. I would probably say if you go by accolades, because you got to have some accolades in there.
Right. Yeah.
So probably the most accoladed guy that we had, or a guy with the most accolades, is Surtain. So if he continues on this path where he's going, I think he already has 1 All-Pro. Did he get second team this year? I don't remember.
I think he was second team.
Well, I mean, he might have 2 All-Pros, right? So already a couple Pro Bowls. So his resume is going to be, loaded. Especially you go first round, top 5 pick, top 10 pick. He's going to be up there, especially with the accolades every year. So Surtain definitely has a great chance to be up there for sure.
Yeah, 2-time Pro Bowler already, 1-time All-Pro. This is the guy who definitely has the pedigree. Still only freshly 24 years old. Guy who's still kind of making his name as one of the better corners in the NFL. Chris, OTAs for the Denver Broncos underway now at Dove Valley. We're going to continue calling it Dove Valley, even though they officially announced that they're changing the name. We're not gonna do that. Still Dove Valley. OTA is completely underway. Sean Payton has had nothing but good things to say about the progress that the team is making as a whole. He's talked very in depth about this kind of pseudo quarterback competition. Media wasn't allowed at some of the practices for OTAs, and then they've been allowed back for the last couple of days. And Bo Nix, shocker, he's been running with the ones. But Sean Payton is telling us, don't look into it too much. Don't read into it too much. We're going to do exactly that. We're going to read into it. What do you think? What do you think Bo Nix getting all of this run with the starters this early in the OTAs means?
Man, when you draft a guy top 20 range, right? Quarterback in top 15, right? You got to put him out there. We got to see what he can do. Also, he's behind on the chemistry with the receivers. Other like I said in past shows, the other quarterbacks been working with their guys. They've been doing 7-on-7s, been doing, route recognition in the red zone, things like that. Route recognition, third down situations. They've already had that. So you got to give Bo as many reps as possible. In order to do that, you got to put him at QB1. QB1 always gets the most reps. I mean, that's everybody knows that, right? That's just how the practice format always goes. You get more reps, more chances to show what you can do, and that's what Bo needs. We need to put him in a spot to where we can see him succeed, and put him at number 1 is perfect for him. I think that we shouldn't have to. it'd be different if we had like an Aaron Rodgers or we had a guy that was already a Pro Bowler like ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
No, we don't. We've had a guy that, Stidham is not really, and then we got Zach Wilson. So put the guy at number one. It only makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that something that Peyton was talking about was how they're handling the install and kind of the amount of repetitions that these guys are getting. And I think it as much as he tells us not to read into anything, I think it's definitely easy to see. Some other notables out of OTAs, Marvin Mims, according to some of the people that have been there, looks incredibly comfortable within the offensive system. This is going to be his second year in the system, his first as a full starter. What can we expect from Marvin Mims just in OTAs and then going into training camp? Do you think that his expanded role as the starting Z receiver in this offense is going to pay dividends for a guy like Bo Nix?
I think so. I think now we get to kind of see his more route running. We've seen him go deep, right? Yeah. We've seen that. We know he can take the top off. We know he can run by people. And I'm hearing he's already doing that too in OTAs. Mm-hmm. So we know that he has that threat to take the top off. So right there, that's going to open up the offense. When you have a threat of a guy that the safety's got to stay on top, right? So I see Mims definitely. He's going to have to learn how to run all the routes to be a complete guy, to be one of the top guys in the league. Right, but his deep threat is going to open up a lot for Bo Nix. It should open up a lot for Cortland also, and then especially all the younger receivers that we got. So Mims could be a great decoy also when he's not getting the ball, and also be a playmaker for those deep shots. So hopefully we can see him get a little bit bigger, because you got to get a little bit stronger going against when you're out there a little bit more, right? Not just sparingly in spots. You're going to have to get a little bit bigger. You're going to have to block a little bit more. You're going to have to it's going to be a little bit more physical on your body, a little bit more wear and tear on your body. Yep. And we're going to see if he's going to be able to hold up the whole season. A guy like Smith from the Eagles has been able to do it, right? But he doesn't block too often. But Mims is in this offense, in this system with Sean Payton, all the receivers have to be able to block. So hopefully he just gets a little bit more physical. Other than that, man, I expect a big year from this kid.
Yeah, and this guy was one of the better separators coming out in his draft class among the wide receivers. Last year, the separation numbers weren't quite there, but hopefully we can see a little bit more of a jump. Granted, last year he didn't have a ton of those reps, so this is going to be an opportunity for him to kind of keep growing on that. You mentioned Courtland Sutton, and Courtland Sutton notably was not at OTAs, has not been there through the mini camps and stuff like that. He is seeking a new deal, and reportedly, per sources, it is an increase of $2 to $3 million, which, Chris, in the grand scheme of things, for a wide receiver one type like Courtland Sutton, who's coming off of a very, very successful season, I would say, that doesn't seem like too much of a jump. Do you think that Courtland is asking for too much from the Walton Penner Group and the Denver Broncos?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, when we look at his market, right, we can't put him in the market of the receiver two, right? We got to put you in the market with the receiver one, because that's what you play on this team.
Yep.
Right. So already his value, his money should be around 20 to 25, if we're going to just be honest, and that's still low. That's still tier two, right? Because tier one, receiver one money is going to be up there with Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, those guys, right? So he's not
got that new deal.
He's not asking to be up there, right? He just wants to be respectable, right? And I'm with Courtland on that. I think he's done. I think he's been a model citizen, a model player for the Broncos. The kid works extremely hard. He plays every down hard. Like, I'm not seeing Courtland going out there and like not going hard.
Right.
I see him running routes hard. I see him blocking hard. I see him playing with emotions. I see him trying to rouse the team up on the sideline, and being a good big brother. Because if we didn't have Courtland with Judy, no telling how Judy would act. Right? Courtland was a good big brother. If we just being honest, right? So I think he definitely deserves that. And for what he's done, I think there'd only be right to do it to him. Right? He's been a model citizen. After DT and after Emmanuel, you couldn't ask for another receiver to come in and be better than Courtland.
Yeah, and that $2 to $3 million increase, Chris, that would put him right in line with what Jerry Jeudy is making in Cleveland, what Christian Kirk is getting in Jacksonville, what Deontay Johnson is getting in Carolina, and it still puts him under guys.
He's better than all those guys.
Yeah, like
I see why he's mad. There's no way Jeudy should make more money than Sutton.
No, I don't think so. I completely agree. And I think, like, what would you think if? So let's say that the Broncos come to the table and they say, "All right, we'll accept. Your contract isn't up until 2026. We can restructure." And they add, $2 to $3 million per season for 2024 and 2025 in incentive-based bonuses. Is that something that you as a player would be like, okay, that's a good middle ground? Or are you going in there and saying, nah, I did my job last year. I bailed this offense out. I won multiple games for this team. I want that in my base salary. I want that 2 to 3 million in my base. I don't want it in bonuses. I don't want it in incentives. I want that there. Which side would you be taking if you were Courtland Sutton?
See, when you play receiver, you can't control the plays, and you can't control where the quarterback's throwing the ball. Yeah. Right. So, hey, I got an incentive deal. Hey, I need 10 touchdowns. I got 9 touchdowns on the season. Hey, coach, we're going to call my plays today. I get that $2 million bonus. It's not like the Chiefs.
The coach is sitting there like, I don't know about that.
The coach is over there getting that call from the Waltons like, hey, man, you better not throw him the ball. We're trying to save that money, So I would not do the incentive deal as a receiver, because it's not really in your hands. You can't control anything. And, I think he deserves that. Just put that in his bank. Really, tax is going to take him half of it anyway. So he's just really getting $1 million probably.
That's the real.
Yeah, just being real. So, y'all can shoot him the extra $1 million, man. He's going to have great energy, great for the locker room. And we just graded out. Like you said, PFF gave us the worst grade. So we have a guy that is probably our highest grader. We definitely need him out there.
Yeah, and I'm looking at all of these wide receiver contracts. I forgot that Nico Collins got that new contract this week as well. Jalen Waddle just got paid. Amon-Ra St. Brown. A.J. Brown got that new contract. And Devontae Smith got that new contract. Michael Pittman. Like, all of these players.
Everybody's paid, man.
The wide receiver market is just so nuts right now. I think that Courtland definitely deserves that 2 to 3. If that's reportedly all he's asking for, what are we doing? Give it to him. That's fine. Like, he's been successful. He's still going to be wide receiver 1. He fits in this offense. Why take away? And this is kind of tying in with where I'm going. Why take away from that wide receiver room when you're going to need as many of those guys who know the offense as possible? Because Greg Dulcich, surprise, Chris, he's still recovering from the hamstring injury. He is probably not going to be ready to go for OTAs these next couple weeks. I don't know, man. At this point, like, your tight end room is looking like Adam Troutman, Lucas Kroll, Nate Adkins. And then I honestly think let's just keep either LJ Humphreys or Deshaun Vele, who they drafted in the 7th round this year. Keep them as like a hybrid tight end type. They're both big body guys. That way you don't have to move on from Court. You don't have to move on from Tim Patrick. You can keep more of those guys. You're keeping Mims for the special teams ability as well. I think that opens up an opportunity for them to keep Courtland Sutton and keep these other key guys who understand the offense. How long are we going to wait for Greg Dulcich, Chris?
I don't understand how long. Usually a hamstring injury, right? Unless you tear it off the bone or rip it off, like that's a year, of recovery. Yeah. But regular hamstring, that's 2 to 3 weeks, right? So what type of hamstring are we dealing with this kid that he continues to be injured? We can never see him on the field, and and he still makes the team. I feel like we got rid of a talented tight end last year, and we kept him, and we could at least kind of work with what was the guy last? I forgot his last name. The tight end. I think he went to the Jets. I think he left.
Manhurts went to the Giants.
No, not Manhurts. The other guy. He was very talented, but we cut him in preseason. Ooh. Got Michael. I forgot his last name. It starts with an O, I think. Kid from Missouri.
Albert Okwuegbunam.
Oh, yeah, Albert. Yeah. Yes, Albert. Yes.
Yeah.
right? And
And
he's a
that was
freak
very
athlete.
controversial. That was
Yeah, and we
very
just let him
controversial.
go, and Dosage, we haven't seen him at all. Probably 1 year, it's rookie year, and bits and
And
pieces of that.
sparingly there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
I think
I don't
it's
know what's going on with his hamstrings. It's mind boggling. You be out that long.
so Christian Watson, the Packers wide receiver, real quick before we move on. Christian Watson has also had lingering hamstring issues since he was drafted. And this offseason, he went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and they did a whole study on his hamstrings. And it turned out he was getting like 20% more load in one hamstring than the other. And so they figured out how to kind of like counterbalance that. And so they increased his load on his other leg by like I think it was like between 6 and 10%, and it made a huge impact. Maybe something like that is going on with Dulcich, where that other hamstring just isn't firing off the same way. I don't know, but it's a freak injury, and like if he's not ready to go by training camp, what are we doing? Just move on until he's
Just move
healthy,
on, man.
and like let these other guys get some run. Chris, you said that
Yeah.
the Broncos were the worst ranked roster in the NFL by PFF. Yikes, that one hurts. Because I feel like there's some other teams in the league that maybe have worse talented rosters than the Broncos do, but the Broncos certainly could be in the conversation for one of those, for the worst talented roster overall. If you're looking at certain position groups, I think that they're definitely a lot better. There's a lot of above average talent in these position groups. Like the wide receiver room, it's not fantastic, but like there's a lot of above average players. The secondary, I don't know. Like outside of Pat Surtain, who else is like an above average guy in that room? Do you agree with the Broncos being the worst ranked roster talent wise in the NFL?
Yeah, I would have to say so, man. It's tough. Maybe I might put the Giants, but they end up getting some more talent with Malik Neighbors and being able to still have Thibodeau and still have some guys, Deontay Banks, have some solid guys, some solid pieces. So I won't say them. It's tough, man. Panthers, now they're another team, but they have they have some talent, right? They have some talent, especially their defense is better. So that's why I would have to put the Panthers ahead of Denver. And quarterbacks are still young, both fresh quarterbacks. Fairly receivers are almost kind of even. I'll give us a little slight edge. Yeah. But their defense is better. So that's the only reason why I would put them. So that's what hurts Denver right now is that we don't have one side that's elite. You could deal with it when you have an offense that's elite, a defense is poor. But both sides are pretty poor right now. And there's only one truly elite guy on the defensive side of the ball at corner. And what you can avoid him and deal with everybody else that's not elite. So it's I think they got it right on the rankings, even though it's sad to say, right? But we just don't have the weapons. If you go look at the rosters of everybody's teams in the league, right? They have a little bit more weapons than we do, and they have a little bit more pieces other than just one player on defense. They might have at least 2 or 3 playmakers on defense. Even though I would say J-Mac's a playmaker, right? But he still has to make it known as an elite playmaker in this league and doing it longer than, just a tight 7-game span. So we only have one elite guy on defense.
Yeah. I'm pulling up the NFL roster rankings for the NFL that I used the other day. And just looking at this for the Broncos, position group wise, and this is per Mike Clay from ESPN. The unit grades for the Denver Broncos: quarterback 0, and this is ranked from I think it's like 0 to 5, right? 5 being the strongest, 0 being the weakest. Quarterback 0.5, understandable. Running back 0.6, pretty understandable. Wide receiver 0.8. I don't know if I agree with that one entirely. They have tight end ranked as a 1.0, and offensive line.
So our tight end is the highest grade out of those 3.
Yes.
Is that what they're saying?
Yes, which is insane to me.
They don't watch the Broncos.
No.
Keep going.
The offensive line unit has a grade of 3.3, which I would agree with that.
O-line should be the highest position group.
Oh, yeah.
On the offense side.
Mm-hmm. The interior defensive line is ranked, has a grade of 2.0, which is interesting. Edge has a grade of 0.9. Outside backer and linebacker have a grade of 0.9 as well. Cornerback has a grade of 2.1, and I think that's kind of boosted up from Pat Surtain. Safety has a grade of 0.3. Offensive ranking of 30th and defensive ranking of 29th, putting their overall roster rank at 31. Yikes. I don't know how to feel about that, man. What do you think would help the Broncos? Like, if let's fast forward to like halfway into the season, what would you have to see from the Broncos to get those grades boosted a little bit?
Of course, you got to make plays at the receiver side and the running backs, right? We haven't had anybody separate themselves at the running back position. Right. So that would be huge. That would put us up there, right? Because we have a solid O-line. Right. We need a running back to separate themselves. The receiver grades, I would probably put them a little bit higher than what they had them.
I would,
especially above the tight ends, as a group. But we definitely still need Cortland and those guys, big body receivers. Right. We're more of a big body receivers, being more physical. We have one speed guy, but mostly we're possession guys. Like, we're gonna body you, we're gonna get that space. So that could be tough too. That could be tough to guard. So I'll put our offense probably a little bit higher, probably like 28, 27. It's hard because when you look at the other team's roster, they have playmakers also, right? But the thing that's gonna help us is that we have to develop these younger guys. Hopefully about next year to 2 years now, we can see now we have multiple positions in those threes. Right. And that's what's going to happen. I think receiver's going to be in the threes after this year. Hopefully Bo gets some experience. He gets in the twos and the threes. That'll be a boost. But right now, I don't see any promise from the tight end position right now. Hopefully next year, we since we have a quarterback, we can make that a high priority next season.
Yeah, I hope so. And Chris, I think that for the running back room, I think it's going to be very interesting to see leading into training camp, like, how is Javonte coming along? Is P. Ryan going to be a part of this team going into the season? Because his role could be diminished or changed in some kind of way. So that group is going to be one to watch. Definitely going to be watching the tight end group as well throughout the rest of OTAs. And you will be joining with us to watch the rest of these. We're going to keep you updated on all the OTA news that is coming out in our next episodes leading up to training camp. Chris, it's been a great time. Make sure that you follow Chris and I on Twitter at Chris Harris Jr., at Patrick Chiotti. Follow at Bleav Network as well. Make sure that you subscribe to this show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on, whether it be Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. Make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well and turn on notifications so you can get the latest interviews and full episodes over there. Whew. Chris, any last words?
Oh man, it's gonna be a great summer, man. Everybody be safe out there. We're gonna continue to update y'all with the Broncos news, and hopefully OTAs go good. Hopefully we get Cortland back for the mini camp. So a lot of great news coming up.
We're gonna get some big Broncos guests this summer as well. I'm very excited. It's gonna be a good time.
Okay.
Until next time, this has been Bleav in the Broncos on the Bleav Network. We'll see you soon, Broncos country.